that's for sure. Never have to close the door. Been a long time, a year before, and I'm missing you so bad.
Hi guys, welcome back to exmolex. Today we're going to read some more Mormon exit stories sent in by viewers. Now these are great stories, so I really hope you guys stay to enjoy them as much as I did. Now before we jump in, if you're not already, please remember to subscribe. It helps the channel out a whole lot. And also for these stories, out of an abundance of caution, all of them are going to be shared anonymously. So let's get started with story number 1. I came out as an ex-Mormon on Facebook yesterday. Your recent video about exiting religion and encouraging others to share their stories gave me the courage to do it. The response has been overwhelmingly positive. I received dozens of messages from family and friends telling me that I was brave. They shared their own concerns about the church with me. People I haven't talked to in years reached out in solidarity. I know some of my family is secretly judging me, but it was worth it for the connections I made with other people who are struggling. Thank you for creating your platform to help others. You helped me find the bravery to make my own post, which will hopefully give others the courage to do the same. You are amazing. This made me so happy. If you haven't seen the video they mentioned, I'll leave a link to it in the description so you can check it out. But I'm so glad that you decided to speak up. I've also had many friends and family that reached out in solidarity when they found out that I left the church. And that has continued to happen. Over the last 3 years, probably at least every couple of months, I have an old friend, classmate, ward member, or distant relation reach out and told me that they left the church and saw that I had too. And honestly, that is a really great feeling. So I'm really glad that you've got to experience that as well. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Hi Lex, I've been watching your videos for at least a year now and I want to share my story with you. My whole life, I was deeply devoted to the church. Like, my parents were married and divorced by President Monson, and my grandparents get Christmas cards from the first presidency. When I was about 15, I had decided that I was a cool Mormon, in the sense that I wouldn't judge people and supported gay rights. And occasionally, I would wear short shorts and crop tops. I always hated going to church, but would read my scriptures all day if I didn't go. I thought that I could live the best of both worlds. I could not even fathom the idea that the church might not be true. That all changed when I moved to Provo, Utah. I was born in Salt Lake City and have lived all over Utah, but Provo really was something else. I got a job at BYU as a part-time custodian when I was 18. While I was working there, I met a boy. What I didn't know is that this boy had already left the church but continued to work at BYU because the job was a legit joke and they don't drug test, LOL. We started dating and I'm sure you can tell where this is going. He wanted to bang it out, but my brainwashed ass really said, marriage! That whole relationship was very toxic, but one conversation we had changed my life forever. We had a talk about our future and he revealed that he didn't want to get married in the temple. My response was, I have to get married in the temple and we can't have sex before marriage, but after that, I don't see myself going to church every week anyway, so it's okay to get married even if you don't believe in the church. He said this to me, why would you try so hard to be temple worthy if you don't even see yourself going to church in your future? Imagine having these serious marriage conversations at 18. Wild. Immediately, I broke. I needed to hear that, but it was the most painful sentence I'd ever heard. I knew he was right. I had to decide if I was going to fully commit to the church or I had to get out. I started doing research. That's when I found your channel. With the help of your videos, I decided to leave, but was in no position to tell anyone about it. So for 8 months, I worked at BYU every single day filled with rage that I was dependent on the church for more than just Sunday school. The church was my job. It sucked, but it was fun to watch ex-Mormon propaganda on BYU campus. Now I'm going to fast forward to my current life. I am living in New York City, got out of that toxic relationship, openly smoke weed and have several tattoos, wear whatever the hell I want. I'm not in a constant state of impending doom anymore. I've discovered a new sense of self and feel so fucking worthy. I am the furthest from the church that I have ever been, but I feel like I can finally breathe. Obviously, getting to where I am now was the most difficult journey I've ever been on. There were some dark nights, scary mindsets. I completely lost it for a while. I try not to dwell on the struggles I faced, but I did it. And the best thing of all, my RM's temple married sister has now decided to leave the church, so maybe all this pain was worth it to be able to help get her through this. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. I genuinely think if I hadn't found your channel, I would have married that guy and wasted my life. Keep doing what you're doing. You are truly out here saving lives. When I first read this one, it made me really emotional. Because honestly, this is a common thing that happens to young people in the church. Getting married as soon as you meet someone because you want to have sex, but you can't do that until you get married. It's also expected of young people in the church to get married right away, and that's not just because it's the norm within Mormonism, it's because the general authorities have actually counseled young people to get married ASAP. Young men are expected to wed very quickly after coming home from their mission, which, may I remind you, is when they're 20 to 21 years old. Young women in the church often get married even sooner. Case in point, yours truly, who got married just after I turned 19. For the person that shared this story, I'm so glad that you had a wake-up call before you jumped into a toxic marriage. And I'm really glad you made it out of the church. I know there's struggles along the way and it's not always easy, but I'm really glad that things are getting better for you and it's all headed in a positive direction. Good for you. Telling my story. This should be interesting. My entire life was devoted to the LDS Church and my faith. I believed it all, 100%. Faith in God Award, Duty to God Award, Eagle Scout, straight A's in seminary, A's and A+s in my BYU religion courses, served an honorable full-time 2-year mission, married in the temple, blessed all my newborn children in the church, and baptized each of my eldest 3 children when they turned 8, even though 2 of them did so after I lost my belief. But that is skipping ahead. Various callings held included being in the 4 elders quorum presidencies, 1 as president, Sunday school teacher, Sunday school president, ward mission leader, scoutmaster, elders quorum instructor, and probably some more that I forgot. I always did my home teaching and did my best to support my wife in her callings and in her efforts to be a wonderful mother to our very Mormon children. Then it all came crashing down in my early 30s, January to February 2015. Our stake was really pushing family history work, and so I dove in online. We did the DNA tests, verified family on our family search records, and took names to the temple regularly. One day at work, a coworker was asking me to explain to him some of my family history and wanted me to show him how we kept track of it all, so I showed him. A while after he had left my office, I was still looking at various members of my family tree and spent some time on John Taylor. Yes, he is my 3rd great-grandfather through one of his wives. While doing this, I saw that many of his wives had been married to other men. I assumed that these men predeceased these marriages to him, but that wasn't the case. This concerned me, and I wanted to understand if this was just a mistake or if there was something I didn't understand about the church's practice of polygamy. So I got on Google and YouTube. That was the start of me learning about polyandry and how common it was in the early church. That led me down the rabbit hole a bit. I found out about the multiple First Vision accounts, Book of Mormon changes, and D&C modifications over time. It was costing me work time, keeping me up at night, and making me very uncomfortable at church. One evening, I got up the courage to bring it up to my wife, knowing that if all this led to a loss of belief, that she might very well leave me, but I couldn't keep it all inside. In the kitchen of our little house, I told her. I was actually shaking. I was so scared. When she looked at me, she was very emotional and said, I already knew about the polygamy and polyandry issues, and I started doubting the church a few years ago. I was afraid to tell you because I thought you would want a new wife if I didn't believe. We both cried, embraced, and began a journey together all the way down the rabbit hole. CES letter, letter to my wife, tons of Mormon stories podcasts, Rough Stone Rolling, Mormon Enigma, No Man Knows My History, the Gospel Topics essays, and probably more, and my belief was gone. I felt betrayed, lied to, and used. We stopped paying tithing that very week and haven't since. We were both so afraid of just leaving the church that we stayed semi-active and doing callings for several years, but always told our bishops about our issues. Today, we don't attend more than a couple times a year at the invitation of family or friends. We are happier than we've ever been. We are more authentic and aren't forcing a culture of guilt and shame on our children. They are so happy. Our parents are heartbroken, I am sure, but they do a good job of not bringing it up. Several of my siblings have since left the church, as well as one of my wife's siblings. Due to the political office I hold in an extremely conservative right-winged area, I am very hesitant to tell anyone in my social circles about my loss of faith. I keep it only to my closest friends, and they are very supportive. We've considered having our records removed at some point, but neither of us wants to do that while our grandparents are still alive. Chickens, I know, but there it is. We drink very rarely, only in social settings with non-judgmental friends and family. My wife and our oldest daughter enjoy the occasional coffee, guilt-free. All in all, life is very good. We are happy, healthy, and living a more authentic life. This is a beautiful story. It's sad that you both doubted the church but didn't feel comfortable telling each other because you were scared, but then it's also such a lovely redemption story that you ended up telling each other and leaving the church together. I 100% understand the fear of losing your spouse over this. When I first read the CES letter, a part of me was really scared that if I told my husband and if he thought I didn't believe in the church anymore, that he would leave me. And luckily, that wasn't the case, but wow. Thank you so much for sharing. I've been feeling strongly that I need to share my story, but it's scary, so I figured here is a safe place to start. There is so much more to my story, but I just want to share what really jump-started my journey out of the church. So just some really basic details about me. I'm an 8th generation Mormon on my dad's side. My mom's family joined when she was a kid. I was raised on the East Coast, so outside of the Mormon bubble. I'm a female born in the 90s, so hopefully that brings some insight to what my upbringing in the church was like. Once when I was a kid, I asked my mom, what if Joseph Smith just made it all up? She told me that he was tarred and feathered and had horrible things happen to him because he would not deny his claims or testimony, so why would he do that if it was all a lie? Well, last summer, I watched the Netflix series Waco. Here was another man who claimed God spoke through him. He was willing to die for his beliefs, and so were many of his followers. This was a huge shelf item for me. I was a TBM, so obviously I knew this guy was not what he claimed to be and was just a con man and a liar. Or maybe crazy and really did believe in his own delusions. Either way, he wasn't what he claimed to be, so he and his followers were tortured and killed for a lie. This made me start to question Joseph Smith's authenticity, because apparently people will suffer and die to uphold a lie. I went down the rabbit hole after that. I started on YouTube watching ex-Mormons explain their stories and reasons for leaving the church. This got me looking into things like church history, church cover-ups, elevation emotion, and cult tactics. This also got me to consider my experiences in the church and recognize the unhealthy parts and ways it was affecting me mentally. This all started in July 2020, and by October, I was done. I also believe the COVID shutdown was a big part of helping get me out. Without the constant indoctrination, I was able to more easily examine my reality and get out. I haven't removed my records yet, but that is when I stopped wearing garments, started breaking the word of wisdom, and considered myself out. My husband was a convert and was pretty much physically and mentally out at that point without knowing it. He knew I was looking into the reasons why people left and asked what they were. I directed him to the CES letter, and he was done after reading that. I feel so lucky that my husband left with me and that we won't be raising our daughters in this cult. I feel I made many choices that I probably would not have made if I wasn't indoctrinated to make those choices. Things like not focusing on my education more and getting married and having kids so young. I fully bought into all the sexist teachings, and I'm so glad that my daughters will not be subjected to them. That Netflix series on Waco is fantastic. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend watching it. I definitely relate to the feelings you had while watching that. When I first left the church and read the CES letter, a huge part of my deconstruction was learning more about cults and cult leaders. Waco was one of them, also Heaven's Gate, the People's Temple, Tom Green, Warren Jeffs, and the Strong City cult. You can read and watch a lot of stuff about these cults online. You can check YouTube, and also sometimes they're on streaming services like Netflix. Seeing so many similarities between these cults and Mormonism, the religion I was raised in, was huge for me. And yes, many Mormons put Joseph Smith on a pedestal because he was willing to die for his beliefs. But in reality, that is not that uncommon in cults. Heaven's Gate died for their beliefs, Jim Jones died for his beliefs, Tom Green and Warren Jeffs went to jail for their beliefs. To the person who shared this story, I'm so glad your family made it out. Thank you for taking the time to share your story. If you guys would like to share your story for another future video like this one, you can send it to me in an email, exmolex@gmail.com, and make the subject line something like exiting religion. And if you liked this video, make sure to leave a like and a comment so that I know you liked it and want to see more. Thank you so much to everybody who shared their story, and thank you guys for watching, and a special thank you to my patrons for supporting the channel. You guys are the best. Extra special thank you to Anthony Guthrie, at Keegar, Craig Call, Doug Davis, Mormonland, The Guiltiest Place on Earth, Jake Nunyabiz, Jason Wilkins, Melissa Jane, Tans, and the Exmo Candle Company for supporting at the Demon tier on my Patreon. If you guys would like to support the channel, check the description for ways you can do so. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!
Never revealing no secrets you're keeping, these promises strong as a spell.